Had a good week thus far. Um, I had a lesson together, I thought, and I tell you all the event that happened from Sunday through Monday, Tuesday. I've had this one thought that I can't get out of my head. I don't know. I tried to put it on paper, guys. I don't know that it's going to make a lot of sense. I pray it does. Um, just pray for me. Turn over, if you will, to Luke 19. This thought, which I'll get into it more later, but I just keep thinking of like the Lord showed me, just the heartache that we cause. And what we're going to look at is just some examples of some of the heartache. Again, I pray that it makes sense. I pray that you get something out of it. But look at, let me get there myself, I guess. Luke 19, let's look at verse 41. We'll read down to 48. It says, "And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, If thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes. For the day shall come upon thee that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee and compass thee around, and keep thee in on every side, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. And he went into the temple, and began to cast out them that sold therein, and them that bought, saying unto them, It is written, My house is the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves. And he taught daily in the temple. But the chief priests and the scribes and the chief of the people sought to destroy him, and could not find what they might do, for all the people were very attentive to hear him." We read this. We see Jesus coming into the city, coming into Jerusalem. But I read that just for context, but I want to look at the main verse here. Just look at verse 41. It says, "And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it." Jesus wept over the city's rejection of him. Their sin grieved him. Look back to Genesis chapter 6. Look at 5 and 6. "And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart." It grieved him at his heart. I tell you, one of the most interesting things that I'm seeing, the whole biblical account of the flood, is that God grieved. For some reason, that is sticking out to me, that God grieved. And I think we overlook that fact. We forget that God grieves. We forget that we caused this. He grieves because of our sin. Man's sin caused him to grieve before the flood. We read that in Genesis 6. We read in Luke 19 that Jesus wept over the city. How about Israel's rebellion in the wilderness? Look at Psalm 78, and we'll look at this again more here in a little bit, but look at Psalm 78. Verse 40. "How did they provoke him in the wilderness, and grieve him in the desert? Yea, they turned back and tempted God, and limited the Holy One of Israel. They remembered not his hand, nor the day when he delivered them from the enemy." Go to Psalms 95. Look at verse 10. 40 years long was I grieved with this generation, and said, it is a people that do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. That's that thought that I can't get away from it. Our sin grieves God. I think too often we get this attitude. We expect God to give every consideration to the trials that we face. We want and we expect His full, undivided attention to our so-called miseries. But we are completely oblivious, it seems, or at least we act like at times, to the heartache that we cause Him. It's almost like we treat Him like a tool we put up on a shelf. We just pull Him out when we need Him. How wrong is that? So I want to look at just a few, like I said, guys, this will be short. This is just some examples. But I look at this, at what the Word reveals God as. Look at Matthew. Chapter 7. And again, I pray this makes sense to y'all, but I keep thinking of what I do, what I cause, and who I'm causing it to. But you look at chapter 7, verse 7, a tender-hearted father. He's revealed here as a tender-hearted father. Look at verse 7. Ask and it shall be given you, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. Or what man is there of you, whom if his son ask bread, will give him a stone? Or if he ask a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to them that ask Him? Go over to John, chapter 14. We see here that He seeks our fellowship. Look at John 14, verse 23. Jesus answered and said unto him, if a man love me, he will keep my words, and my Father will love him, and he will come unto me and make our abode with him. Come unto him, I'm sorry. He will come unto him and make our abode with him. He seeks our fellowship. You can hold your place here, but go back to chapter 4 of John. We see that he seeks to be loved. Look at chapter 4, verse 23. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. True worshipers. I tell you, that stood out to me. We won't go into that, but I just asked, is that us? And then flip back to 14. Let's look at verse 8 and 9. You read this, and it shows you that to know Christ's loving character is to know the loving character of God. 14, verse 8 and 9. It says, Philip saith unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Jesus saith unto him, have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, show us the Father? So what I want to look at now, and again, I tell you, I apologize. I feel like this is just scrambled up. I'm trying to get this thought out. Just bear with me. But another example of what causes God's heart to ache. Go back to Exodus. Chapter 16. And there's a lot you could read through here, but we're just going to look at a couple things. 16:3. And when the children of Israel said unto them, would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pot, and when we did eat bread to the full, for you have brought us forth in the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. So we see they're complaining here. The children of Israel are complaining about hunger. Look at 17:2. Wherefore the people did chide with Moses and said, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, why chide with me? Wherefore do you tempt the Lord? And then if you skip up through to chapter 32. Let's just start in verse 1. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron, and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And Aaron said unto them, break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he had made it a molten calf. And they said, these be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made proclamation and said, tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early on the morrow, and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink, and rose up to play. And the Lord said unto Moses, go, get thee down, for thy people, which broughtest out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, these be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore, let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make thee a great nation. You read through this, you see the Israelites, they forgot their past. They forgot what the Lord's already done for them. Things got tough. They lost their faith. You see in Exodus 16:3 a cry for food, 17:2 chiding for water, and in 32 they gave up. They did it their way rather than God's way. They thought they could take matters in their own hands instead of waiting on God. But you see, when they did this, they put something before God. But do we not do the same thing? Do we not at times cause God to grieve because of our lack of faith? Do we not forget what he's already done for us? Things get a little tough, and what do? Where you at, God? Did you forget about me? It don't take long before we try to handle it ourselves instead of being patient and waiting on him. We act like he's never been there for us. I tell you, we act like we forget the past like they did. We forget what he's done. We act like he's never been there for us. We have a lack of faith. That lack of faith leads to sin, and that sin causes God grief. So I ask you tonight, what grieves us? Flip over to Philippians chapter 3. Look at verse 17. It says, "Brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk so, as ye have us for an example. For many walk, of whom I have told you often, and now tell you even weeping, that they are the enemies of the cross of Christ, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is in their shame, who mind earthly things." Look at verse 18 again. "For many walk, in whom I have told you often, and now tell you even weeping." Paul speaking here. He's telling this weeping. He's grieved. He's brokenhearted over the damage caused and can be caused by false teachers. When you get false teachers, you get false professions of faith. You get false sense of security. You get lost souls dying and going to hell. This broke the heart of Paul. So, this thought I ask you, does it break our heart? Are we heartbroken over the lost? Do we act that way? Does it show? I know we talk about it, but does it show? Excuse me. You know, Matt was talking back here when we started about salvation and kids and whatnot, and then, of course, Brother Tyler being called to preach, which will probably be soon. But we act that way, and I tell you, I wonder, every one of us in here, well, for the most part, had lost kids. And this was already wrote down here. This wasn't new with what we talked about. But we've all got lost kids. And I know it breaks y'all's heart, every one of you, mine too. I wish we could do something for them and save them. We can't. But I know we're all heartbroken over that. And it sounds bad, but let me ask you, do you feel the same way about the person next door? Just a thought. I mean, I don't know. I don't. I can tell you right now. I'm ashamed to say that, but I don't. I do not have the conviction about somebody down the road that I should, like I do my child sitting there right now. And that ain't right. Because that soul next door or over here is just as important as that one right there. But I forget that. I don't let it break my heart like I should. I feel like sometimes we hold the souls of a loved one in a higher regard than others. And I'm not saying y'all do. If you do, I don't want you to answer that. I just encourage you to think about it. Because if we do, it ain't right. If we're really grieved or heartbroken over the loss, does it show? Does it grieve us when we grieve God? That's the question. That's what's killing me. That's what I can't get past. Knowing that our sin, our failures, our shortcomings grieve the Spirit, does it break our hearts like it should? I tell you, I think we've gotten comfortable with sin. I think if any of us in here say otherwise, I tell you, we're lying to ourselves. we've gotten comfortable with sin, even the smallest in the flesh, we like to categorize it. But I tell you, if we've gotten comfortable with sin, it means we've gotten comfortable with grieving the Lord. We've gotten comfortable with letting down our Savior. That's a thought that crosses my mind so often. It'll cross my mind and I'll get tore up about it, but I'll forget it 10 minutes later. I look at everything He's done for me, what He's done for my family, and I fail Him so often. Every single day, every minute, I fail Him and let Him down. But He's always right there to help me. He's always there to pick me up, to get me through the trials, without fail. Without fail. And I tell you, I'll end with this. I'll tell you where this come from. Y'all know already, for the most part, but we left here Sunday. And we went home, sat home for a few hours, got a call that Aniston's horse was on the ground. Something was wrong with it. So we went out there, and sure enough, it was dehydrated, wound up policking. And we gave it medicine. We walked it for about 5 hours. Medicine was wearing off, wasn't doing what it should. So we knew we needed to load it up. We had to take it to the vet. So I loaded it up about 10:30, 11 o'clock Sunday night. Drove it to Benton. And wasn't there long. And of course, it was a surgical issue, which is $10,000. So we weren't going to do that. So we had to put it down. And I'm telling you, I can deal with putting an animal down. I can do it. If I had to do it myself, I'd do it. I don't say I like it, but I can do it. But what got me, what tore me up, and it still does to this, and this is where the problem is. It tore me up watching her try to be tough, but seeing her cry. And then that phone call to Amanda, listening to Aniston cry and scream in the background. It bothered me Sunday night. Got up Monday morning early, had to go bury it. The Lord hit me with this thought that as much as it tore me up to see them heartbroken, I break His heart every day, and it doesn't bother me. And that scares me because, one, I know I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong. I ask that y'all pray for me for that. Shouldn't be that way. But it scares me because I'm putting something else in front of the Lord. I'm putting more importance on that than I am me hurting Him. And there's no telling how He'll get your attention. That's what scares me. There's a lot of ways He can do it, but it's a dangerous thing because whatever it is you're putting before the Lord, He's going to show you. And if you don't correct it, He's going to correct it for you. And I look at what I'm putting in front of Him, and it scares me because I don't know how He can get my attention with that. But that's my thought. We break God's heart every day. We let Him down. We fail Him. But I just don't know that it bothers us anymore like it should, like it used to. I know that we're not out here doing silly stuff. We're not in bars. We're not doing whatever. You fill in the blank. But I just don't know that any of us can sit here and say that we've not gotten comfortable with sin. And I'm worse than any of you, I guarantee it. And I'm not judging you. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not doing none of that. I'm just telling you we've gotten comfortable with it. And I just don't think it bothers us as much as it should. That we break the Lord's heart every day. We cause Him to grieve when we fail Him. I know y'all have had, I'm sure y'all have had people in your life, may have been a dad, I don't know who it would have been, somebody you wanted to please, and you would try so hard to please them. I've been there. I've done that. I've done it with employers, of all things, and you should work good and have a good work ethic and want to please them. But I've tried to please people on this earth more than I've tried to please my Heavenly Father. I've done nothing but cause him grief. And I probably will to the day he calls me home. But I just pray he can work on me with it and cause me to get out of it and do better. I'm telling you, we can always do better. We can do better tomorrow than we did today. We can do better next week than we did last week. I tell you, we just got to have that desire to please him and not cause grief and heartache. Yeah, that's all I got. I don't know that you got anything out of it. I pray you did, but that's it.